Are you looking for something new, like the best new indie city building games to play in 2025? Indie developers are the ones pushing boundaries with fresh ideas, and this video showcases a list of hidden gems, or maybe not so hidden, that are making a name for themselves in 2025. Also, by indie, in this case it means self-published, or at least somewhat so. And you might find your new favorite city builder in this collection. Let's find out. Beginning the building, Metropolis 1998. This is intending to be a fresh, modern take on city building, but personally it actually vibes like it's a throwback to Sim Town. Now, you probably know Sim City, and Sim Town was a kids game in around 1995, and it was stripped down and simplified with a bit of environmental resource management, but you basically controlled and managed the people a little bit closer. So it's not city, it's a bit more zoomed in, and Metropolis 1998 akins itself in that style, where the individual citizens living in your city and the real-time traffic and the deeper simulation caused by just zooming in a little bit more is here. Now, the pixel art aesthetic here is very much a nostalgic retro vibe. It's got this isometric graphics, pixel art designs, and personally, as someone who loves pixel art, this is something that really gels well with my tastes and preferences, but might not be so much up your alley. Let me know what you think of how this game looks. This one does have a free demo running right now though, so you can just jump in and check it out, and it'll be launching into early access towards the end of this year, 2025, and might be in early access. The plan is for up to 2 years. So this is looking at a 2027 full release, but Metropolis 1998 is intending to become pretty much playable soon. Moving on to something grander, MEMORIAPOLIS. This is a take on the city building genre, which is like a grand city builder. So instead of zooming in, you're zooming out a little bit more, but not to the 4X grand strategy region of genres in video games. This is still a city builder, but you're not just building a city. You're shaping this living, evolving civilization, and you're going through 5 major eras, from the Antiquity Age to the Industrial Revolution, and you are guiding your people through the ages and trying to leave your mark on history. But there's going to be power struggles between rival factions and challenges, and just keeping everything together. You know, civilizations, they tend to not last forever, and things rise and fall. So MEMORIAPOLIS is still a city builder, but it's a bit more organic because it's got this living city concept going, and things grow naturally. So you're a bit more hands-off on the minute details, but you're guiding and shaping the bigger picture. And there's these wonders and your legacy and all of this grand stuff. So a grand city builder. So you know how you have a strategy game and then you have a grand strategy game. So this is pretty much a grand city builder, and maybe the establishments and fundamentals of a new subgenre in the city building area. And that's why indie developments tend to be able to try different things. They can zoom further in than what the mainstream would usually do, or zoom further out and try some new balancing acts. So MEMORIAPOLIS, this one did fully launch already earlier on in 2025 to mostly positive user reviews, and they are still updating things and tweaking things and based on community feedback, so we can see how this one progresses into the future. Next up, we've got Settlements Rising, a medieval city-building colony management game that, at first glance, probably looks like many games, particularly the city builders inspired by Banished. So Banished, of course, is the most famous indie city builder because it was the city builder that revived the genre, but it's pretty old at this point. Settlements Rising is continuing that style of being inspired by what came before and trying to tweak things to be different or better. This one did fully release at the start of 2025 to very positive user reviews, though just a few hundred, so it's a more niche game in terms of popularity, but what people have experienced so far is enjoyed. You're managing your simulated villagers, there's dozens of professions and resources, natural disasters, enemy raids that you have to defend against, and you have to build up your city/colony through trade, production chains, and just balancing all the numbers in the data. This one has continued to get updates through 2025, here and there, though this one is one that looks indie as well, and by that I mean just visually there's some low poly aspects and not necessarily bad, but more simplified visuals, which some people don't always get along with so well, so that one's up to you to decide, but for now, Settlements Rising has been a pretty decent one for the year. Moving on, Laysara Summit Kingdom. This one has been climbing to the sky and entered early access earlier on in 2024, but to very positive user reviews, and it's been going through early access with the initial plan to release in 2025, as it was aiming for a 6 to 12 month period in early access. It's past that already, so if they're even vaguely sticking to the original schedule, they will release in 2025. But with early access games, of course, you never know. You could just keep in early access for 10 years. Some games do that. So I will be talking about Laysara Summit Kingdom moving into the future as well. So be sure to subscribe to the channel if you want to keep up with more city building news and updates. But Laysara Summit Kingdom is one that is not a vertical city builder, because there are those. This one is a mountainside city builder. You're carefully planning production chains and satisfying the various needs of your three-caste society while dealing with the mountain hazards, so weather, breakdowns, avalanches, as you are building to the peak to build a massive monument to conquer this mountain with construction. And it's not always a walk in the park. I mean, it's kind of the opposite of a walk in the park. Unless you like hiking. You get my point. Laysara Summit Kingdom continuing through early access with very positive user reviews. If you like the look of it, check it out. Then for a Settlers successor, Pioneers of Pagonia. So the Settlers series has some difficulty in terms of genre definition. Some Settlers games are more like city builders, some are just more like RTS, some are just the resource management games, and it's hard to define what is or isn't a city builder because the Settlers games tend to be edge cases in all regards. Pioneers of Pagonia was originated from the original developer of the Settlers series, so this is very much vibing in that direction. Though I will call this a city builder because you are placing houses and there are inhabitants of those houses, so we'll count this as a city builder. This one did enter early access right at the end of 2023, so it's about a year and a half through early access right now, which is already past their original schedule of 12 months. Generally, I think it's just the norm that an early access game, they tend to say, 6 to 12 months as just a default, and almost every time they run longer. So this one is another one where if they're even vaguely sticking to the schedule, they can release in 2025, but I wouldn't hold my breath for a full release because this one has been well loved already. Going through early access, it's got very positive user reviews with thousands of user reviews on Steam, and people have just been enjoying it as the true successor to the Settlers series, as the official Settlers series has been a bit wonky, we could say. This one does stick to what you would know for a Settlers game, and you are building up your village, managing your resources, keeping your people alive, building roads, and defending against emerging threats as you optimize your production chains. So this one, it's already well liked, but it could be in early access for a while. Then for Foundation. This is not a new game, but it did finally, after many years, fully release in 2025. And it's in the running for the top city builder of 2025. Being an indie game, that is pretty impressive. This is a gridless, laid-back medieval city building game which has organic development. You don't even place roads. The roads form where your people tend to go. And you don't place individual houses, you zone an area and things construct organically. So for those of you who hate grids, Foundation is your savior. This is very, very popular. Because it's been popular for so long, I don't really have to talk about it too much, but it has just under, at the time of recording, 20,000 user reviews on Steam at a very positive 85% positive rating. This has been a resounding success, and the organic city building with the modular monument construction where when you build, for example, a church, you can choose how many rooms and buildings and the size of your church, and it will cost more resources to build it bigger, but it will have bigger benefits as well, and a lot of the main structures are like that. For full transparency, Foundation did sponsor us in the past, but this is not sponsored, and there's some other games on this list that are like that, but to be transparent, I should say that. And for fully released city builders in the year, at the moment, it is probably considered the best, but we have some time to change things up. Next up, we've got Goblin Camp. Here you're building a new home for your goblins. It's a goblin city builder. The trend of goblins, I've noticed, has been on the rise. They're becoming more and more popular, not as nefarious characters, but as likable, cute characters. This one means you can live among the goblins and take control of your own little goblin encampment and grow it to a bustling city in a procedurally generated northern forest. You'll be fishing, farming, exploring the forest itself, and harnessing the spirits in a fantasy-ish city builder inspired by Finnish mythology. This did enter early access towards the end of 2024 to a handful of user reviews, but they are very positive. They're over 90% positive. Sample size is a bit small, but for the few who have jumped in, they have been enjoying it. The plan is to be in early access for under a year, which we will see if they stick to that, but that means they are targeting a 2025 full release. And they have been putting out patches about once a month-ish. There's some magic, there's some complex challenges, there's some improvements based on feedback. So Goblin Camp, it's promising, and it has a solid start. Then for a World War-inspired city builder, KAISERPUNK. So earlier we talked about grand city builders, and KAISERPUNK vibes in that direction as well, with some 4X grand strategy elements, not just on the city building side, but with actual military. Here you are building a city to rule the world. It's a production-focused city building game where you can conquer the world in an alternate 20th century universe. You're managing your city, growing industries, building a military, and you're defeating your rivals to become the greatest empire. Now, for full transparency, KAISERPUNK did also sponsor us in the past, but this one has now fully released onto Steam earlier on in 2025 to mostly positive user reviews, floating in the 70-ish percentages. This one is something a little bit different, and I think it blending the genres throws people off a little bit. If you're going in for a full-on city builder, KAISERPUNK might not be exactly what you're looking for. And if you're looking for a grand strategy, it's also not really that far in that direction. This is for people who really enjoy both the city building aspects and also the military design and planning and commanding of all of this. It's not an RTS, it's more bigger scale like that. And you are trying to balance this experience, and the game itself is trying to balance that experience of having these production chains and building houses and looking after your people and your city, but also preparing for war and sending troops out to conquer regions and all of this stuff. That might cause some of the mixed reviews in terms of just expectations. Before jumping into KAISERPUNK, be sure to know what you are jumping into, but overall, it's a solid enough experience as long as you know what you want and what you're getting. Then for a more recent announcement, DarkSwitch. This is a vertical city builder with survival focus. You're building a city in and around a great tree, defending it against a mysterious fog. You're facing challenges of limited space, scarce resources, and tough moral choices as you're trying to uncover the mysteries of this veil. Survival city builders, of course, we have a lot of them now, and vertical city builders also a big trend of building cities upwards. So instead of expanding side to side, you're expanding up and sometimes down. This one, you are living on this giant tree and just trying to survive because the whole focus is facing off against all of these things, and you can see inspirations from Banished, you can see inspirations from Frostpunk. They've all sort of come together on this one. Now, this is a more recent announcement, and to be clear, it's not 100% confirmed for a 2025 release, but they have been showing it off, and that means there is a good chance that it could at least become playable this year. People tend to always come for me when I say, oh, there's no release date. And if there's no release date by a certain month, that means it's definitely not releasing this year. And then time and time again, games get release dates announced as short as 2 months before they release. It happens every year. So DarkSwitch, it's not guaranteed for a 2025 release, but I thought I should mention it because they're hyping it up like it's gonna be. So it might be, but we'll see how that turns out closer to the date. Speaking of vertical city builders, STARIO Haven Tower. Now, this one was also a sponsor in the past for full transparency, and this is coming soon to early access later on in 2025, but there is a free demo right now, and they've done the thing where they uploaded the free demo as a separate listing on Steam, which I always prefer because that means you can review the demo. If you just have a demo on a Steam listing, you can't review it. But if you upload the demo as its own game, then you can. And this one has been getting over 90% positive user reviews on the demo so far. And this is a vertical city builder where you are a people that are coming out of the ground and you're trying to build essentially like the Tower of Babel. You're just building upwards and upwards and upwards. You're adding more layers to your tower, and they have this brace technology which allows you to expand out to the sides to quite a degree because you build these scaffolds and then you can build on top of the scaffolds, but you can also build on the scaffolds itself sideways, and you can have some weird constructions and shapes that all come together. And then as you go up into the sky, you go through various layers. Close to the ground, it's like dusty and dry, but then you get higher up and then it's like really wet and moist. And then you get up into the sky and into the stars, and there's a lot to manage as you go up and down, because then you get this huge logistical problem of how do you get the best water production, which is like in the middle layer of the atmosphere, and then you can drop water down, but then how do you get water up? So then how do you have people living higher up, and where do they get the water from? And then what about food? Food might grow at a different layer. So it's all about managing your space and getting your efficiency up, but then also figuring out how do you move your resources up and down your tower to make sure everyone can survive. So STARIO Haven Tower, the free demo has been going well. It's going into early access and looking at 6 to 12 months as well, so it's probably a 2026 full release for this one, but the demo so far, you can just check it out yourself. Going to the underworld, the Hell City Builder of the Dead. This one is a unique looking one. You are taking up the role of a Hell Governor, and you're building your city in the underworld, but there's also different missions here. Each mission is supposed to be very different from one another, and they're all inspired by a specific mythology. And there's some unused and, well, rarely used mythologies in this game, and that alone sets it apart. Each mission has a titan, which is influencing what you have to do and your objectives on each level. You need to figure out how to satisfy the demands while balancing all of the resources, but there's also some military aspects to this game where you have to train up some units to fight off things. And there's this constant flow of souls because you are the manager of hell. So there's this constant flow of souls, and you have to process these souls so that they can do what you want them to do, and there's no backlogs and stuff, because if the flow of souls stops, then things can go pretty bad. So this is somewhat a survival city builder, but also it's mission-based, which is nice. We don't see mission-based city builders all too often these days. But also it's utilizing some cultures and inspirations that are rarely seen, and that is nice to see these days. This one does have a free playtest that you can just try out if you are interested. Some people have been jumping into the demos and stuff. It will be going into early access sometime later in 2025. Looking at early access for at least a year, but then we'll see how this one goes, because it's trying so many new things here. Feedback is probably going to influence how things go, so it could be quite different moving into the future, but we'll see how it all turns out for the Hell City Builder of the Dead. Back up to the surface, HistoriCity Florence. Florence city builder specifically is an interesting one. It's kind of a Roman city builder, but it's not Rome, and this is set during the Renaissance. It's a mission-based survival city builder / colony sim where you're rebuilding Renaissance Florence after the aftermath of the Black Plague. Or rather, not after the aftermath, just in the aftermath of the Black Plague. There's droughts, there's disasters, you have to build a Florence cathedral, you get to hire Michelangelo, and you survive various events, and there's specifically an authentic Renaissance lute soundtrack if you are a music aficionado and a history buff. This one does also have a free demo, and it's been coming along for a while. We've been watching HistoriCity Florence develop over the times. I feel like it should be entering early access this year because it feels due, particularly with the demo running. I will be anticipating how this turns out and seeing how it develops, but it's interesting to see a historical city builder set in Italy / well, where Rome kind of is, but in Italy, but it's not an ancient Roman city builder. It's a slightly different take, which I think is going to be interesting. Now, speaking of ancient Roman city builders, Pompeii the Legacy. So moving from Florence to further away down, into Pompeii, and this is a historical Roman city builder, which, fun fact, we haven't actually gotten historical Roman city builders very much since 2009 until 2024. There was a 15-year gap of ancient Roman city builders, and that feels like it's not true, but it is. Since Grand Ages Rome in 2009, they suddenly stopped making ancient Roman city builders, and now we have so many. This is an indie one, Pompeii the Legacy, and of course it's set around the city of Pompeii. There is a volcano to deal with, if you haven't guessed already. And you are trying to deal with Roman society and all of its intrigues that you have to solve so that you can be a powerful ruler. This is promising a living city. It's inspired by historical events. You're gonna be managing trade routes, research and development to develop things beyond your starting point. But of course, the events, the disasters, the firestorms are going to be the focus of Pompeii the Legacy. So this game is a city builder where you are trying to build your legacy in the face of fiery death. And that could be kind of fun. Earlier we mentioned games inspired by the Settlers. This is another, The First Explorers. This does vibe at first glance to be a bit more RTS with the Settlers approach in terms of gameplay, because it does look very much like an RTS, but also there is city building as well. So The First Explorers is blending Settlers-like organic city building gameplay, we could say, but also RTS in this bustling world set in the time of antiquity in Europe, with you being able to play as the Romans, Carthaginians, or Gauls. So you are building up your village / town / city, collecting resources, handling and setting up all of these production chains, and then raising an army to conquer and survive in these strange worlds. This is looking very promising as well, and we've been watching it for a little bit. It's meant to be coming into early access and staying in early access for up to a year. Of course, they always say 12 months, but it'll probably be longer. We have been watching this for a while, and the devlogs are showing a lot of detail, the trailers are showing quite a lot of gameplay, and there's a lot of questions and answers already being put out there. indie developers tend to either have much more free communication with the audience. This is something that we see in this case where there's lots of Q&A, lots of discussions, lots of ideas being thrown around, or they tend to be too busy to talk to anyone. That's the nature of indie games, and the First Explorers looks like it's really trying its best to be something proper and might be able to pull itself all together and become another, maybe true successor to the Settlers series. On the move is the Wandering Village. This is one that we have been keeping an eye on for a long time. It entered early access towards the end of 2022, so it's approaching 3 years in early access right now. And it's a moving city builder, which was a big trend for a long time, and it's a little bit less now, but it's still a thing, where your city moves around. And in this case, you are moving around because your city is built on the back of a giant dinosaur-like creature called an onbu. So you are surviving on the back of this creature, but this is a symbiotic relationship. You have to keep the onbu alive, because if the onbu dies, well, your city stops moving, and if your city stops moving, this whole world you're living in this game is pretty much a toxic poison cloud of death and disease, so you kind of have to keep moving. But also, as you keep moving through the world, your city comes across different things. You're moving across this world map, and you're going from biome to biome. So it's not that the weather and the climate changes through the year, the actual biome changes. So when you build up in one biome, you might set things up to be really good in this mountainous biome, but then you go into the next zone and it's a tropical jungle, or you're swimming through an ocean. So you don't always know what you're going to be facing in the future, and you have to prepare your city for various possibilities. Of course, there's events and things you discover along the way as well. And then the onbu can become infected by poisonous plants, which you then have to deal with. So not only you need to survive, you'll be keeping the onbu alive, and you can feed the onbu and influence it. And there's a lot of cool ideas here. Now, it's been going through early access for a long time, and it's way past its original plans, but they have finally given a 1.0 launch date announcement, and it is fully releasing in July 2025. So the Wandering Village, after a long walking journey through development, it's coming to a full release. It's very well received already, 90% positive user reviews on Steam after many thousands of user reviews. People like it, and the 1.0 release is kind of exciting. For another game that's been in early access for a long time, Timberborn. Yes, I do have to mention Timberborn. It's an indie city builder that's still in development. It entered early access towards the end of 2021. So we are approaching 4 years in early access, which is a long time. Not unheard of, but again, how long will you stay in early access message says, well, at least a year. But it's Timberborn, and for full transparency, Timberborn has sponsored me in the past, so you know that. But it does have overwhelmingly positive user reviews on Steam. 95% positive after, at the time of recording, over 30,000 user reviews. I honestly keep saying I don't even know why it's still in early access. They could have easily released fully, and they keep saying, oh, launch date reveal of the next update. They've just launched update 7, adding zip lines and tubeways. And the game keeps getting bigger and better and expanding more and more. Personally, I prefer if a game gets to 1.0 and then keeps adding big updates afterwards, because the game feels kind of finished. Like, it feels ready and good to go. People love it. 95% positive. People like Timberborn. So it's good to release. They could make these updates as 1.1 updates, but oh well, they decided to do it this way. Maybe there's some benefit to staying in early access, but also I think there's some detriments to staying in early access beyond its time. Whatever it is Timberborn is doing, it's working because it's popular and it's just really solid. I can hope that it fully releases in 2025 so it matches the format of this list, but I don't think I can get away with not mentioning this. By the way, if you do want to get Timberborn, you can use the GOG referral links down below. If you click any of those GOG referral links and get any game off GOG, it does help support this channel, so thank you so much for that. It goes a long way. Continuing the journey through long early access is Farthest Frontier, a survival city builder akin to Manor Lords-ish kind of games, but this is by Crate Entertainment and an indie development, and it is a medieval city builder that looks pretty good, and you are forging a town in an untamed wilderness and harvesting raw materials, hunting, fishing, farming, all the good stuff. You're producing items to trade, consume, equip, and you are fighting in battles versus the enemies from the outside. And of course, it's a survival city builder, so you're surviving against the elements. This is supposed to, well, initially said they'll be in early access to last through spring of 2025, and we are past that. So this has been in early access since towards the end of 2022, and we are approaching 3 years in early access. This year was supposed to be the target for full release. So there's still time to go, and they are going through version 0.9.7 right now at the time of recording. And they are saying that it's getting close to their vision for version 1.0 later this year. So Farthest Frontier is definitely aiming for a full release in 2025. We will see if they can stick to that. It's a solid one. With almost 20,000 user reviews on Steam, it's at 86% positive ratings. So Farthest Frontier, I remember when it first entered early access, there were a lot of performance problems. They've fixed those up now. It should be much safer to jump in now, or you could wait for 1.0 release, which is promised to be soon. And there you have it. That was a bunch of indie city builders that you can play in 2025, or should be able to be played, and they're all looking really good. Which one was your favorite? And also, if you think I missed anything, let me know, because I'm always looking for new games. And sometimes I have good reasons to not include things, or I have special reasons to include them. There might be reasons. If you'd like to support the channel, please do check out the Patreon. You can just follow there for free. There's some bonus videos that you don't have to pay anything to see, but if you do sign up on Patreon, very much appreciated. There's some exclusive content there, some Let's Plays, and some city building stuff as well, like a SimCity 2000 playthrough, which you might be interested in. Alright, that's gonna be it for now. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this. Watch some other list videos on this channel, subscribe for more, and I'll see you in the next video.